Late one night, a young black nurse named Maya finishes her shift at the hospital and begins her usual walk to the parking lot. Exhausted but relieved to be heading home, she's suddenly stopped by a police officer. At first, it seems routine, but things quickly take a troubling turn. The officer's tone grows harsh, his questions intrusive, and his demeanor aggressive. Despite Maya remaining calm and explaining she's just trying to get home, the officer refuses to let her go. As the situation escalates, Maya tries to assert her rights, but the officer won't back down. Little does he know, the woman he's targeting isn't just a nurse, she's the daughter of the city's police commissioner. What happens next will leave you stunned and expose an important lesson about justice and accountability. Stay tuned to see how Maya's identity changes everything. As the officer demands to see Maya's ID, she hesitates, her heart racing. She knows her rights, but the way he's glaring at her makes her feel anything but safe. "I'm just trying to get home," she repeats firmly, trying to stay calm. Instead of listening, the officer accuses her of being suspicious, questioning why she's out so late. Maya explains she's a nurse and had just finished a long shift at the hospital. She even points to her scrubs and ID badge, but the officer seems uninterested. His voice gets louder, and he radios for backup, treating her like a suspect rather than someone simply heading home. What the officer doesn't know is that Maya had already texted her father when the stop began, explaining what was happening. As the situation drags on, tension builds. Somewhere across the city, her father, a powerful man in law enforcement, receives a message. As the officer continues his aggressive questioning, Maya feels the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She wonders if this could escalate into something far worse. Around them, the parking lot is eerily quiet, and every second feels like an hour. Maya's phone buzzes in her pocket. It's her father responding to her earlier message. She wants to check it, but she's too afraid to make any sudden moves. Meanwhile, the officer grows more impatient, even accusing her of lying about being a nurse. "You don't look like you belong here," he sneers, ignoring the badge clipped to her scrubs. Maya's voice shakes as she asks why she's being treated this way, but he brushes off her question, tightening his grip on the situation. Unbeknownst to him, the police commissioner is already on his way. Maya's father isn't just angry. Maya's breathing grows shallow as the officer orders her to stay where she is. His hand hovers near his holster, an unspoken threat that sends a chill down her spine. The parking lot lights cast long shadows, and the silence is broken only by the faint crackle of the officer's radio. She feels trapped, trying to stay calm while anger and fear churn inside her. At the same time, the police commissioner speeds toward the scene, his phone pressed tightly to his ear as he calls for immediate updates. He's piecing together what's happening, his fury growing with each detail. He can't believe his daughter, the woman he raised to stand strong and fight for what's right, is being harassed by someone who should be protecting her. Back in the parking lot, Maya looks the officer in the eye and says, "You don't know who you're dealing with." The officer laughs dismissively, but that confidence won't last much longer. Sirens wail in the distance, and the air feels electric. Something big is about to go down. Is furious, and when he arrives, nothing will ever be the same. As the distant sound of sirens grows louder, the officer glances toward the entrance of the parking lot, his smug expression faltering for just a moment. Maya notices it but says nothing, keeping her gaze steady. Inside, she's boiling with frustration and fear, but she's determined not to let him see it. The officer, trying to maintain control, mutters something about teaching a lesson and steps closer, his hand now resting on his belt. Suddenly, another car pulls up, tires screeching slightly as it comes to a stop. It's not the police backup the officer expected, it's another officer in plain clothes. The man steps out quickly, his face a mix of confusion and concern as he looks at Maya and then the officer. "What's going on here?" he asks sharply. Before anyone can answer, the sirens finally reach the lot, and a black SUV with tinted windows pulls in. The doors swing open, and Maya's father steps out, his expression unreadable, but his presence commanding. The officer's face drains of color as recognition dawns. But before he can say anything, the plainclothes officer speaks up. "You didn't run her ID, did you? You're going to regret this." The tension in the air is now unbearable as everyone braces for what's about to unfold. Maya's father strides toward the scene, his sharp gaze locked on the officer who now looks completely shaken. "What's your name and badge number?" The police commissioner demands in a tone that cuts through the tension like a knife. The officer stammers, trying to explain, but it's clear there's no way out of this. Maya steps forward, standing beside her father, her fear replaced by a quiet strength. Before the officer can finish his excuse, the plainclothes officer interrupts, handing the police commissioner a tablet. "Sir, I pulled up the border cam footage," he says, his voice low but steady. The commissioner's face hardens as he watches, the tension in his jaw visible. Maya doesn't need to see the footage to know what's on it, she lived it. But the weight of her father witnessing the harassment firsthand is something else entirely. Just as it seems the officer is about to face the full consequences of his actions, the commissioner turns to Maya. "You handled this better than most would," he says, his voice softer now. But before anyone can breathe a sigh of relief, the plainclothes officer adds, "There's more, sir. This isn't his first incident." The commissioner's eyes narrow, his anger reigniting. "Get him out of here," he orders, and the disgraced officer is escorted away. But the final twist comes when Maya steps forward again. "Dad, this isn't just about me," she says firmly. "If this is how he treats people, how many others has he done this to?" Her words linger in the air, and the commissioner nods, realizing the fight isn't over. It's just beginning. In the days that follow, the incident sparks a deeper investigation into the officer's history. Maya's father ensures that every complaint against him is reviewed, determined to hold him accountable. Meanwhile, Maya uses her voice to share her experience, speaking out about the importance of accountability and fairness in law enforcement. Her story gains attention, resonating with others who have faced similar situations but never had the chance to be heard. The police commissioner, proud of his daughter's strength, begins pushing for reforms within his department, vowing to make meaningful changes. He knows it won't be easy, but Maya's courage has inspired him to take action beyond this one case. As for Maya, she returns to her work as a nurse, carrying a renewed sense of purpose. Though the night was traumatic, she refuses to let it define her. Instead, she uses it to fuel her mission for justice and change.